By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to structure your Jira backlog. How you can use epics, stories, sprints and releases so you can actually plan your product rather than being overwhelmed by Jira's interface. Hi, I'm Sam, I'm a product manager, and over the last decade or so I've used Jira to launch probably about 10 different products, all with different teams. Over the years, I have developed a simple, repeatable process for setting up my Jira so that my teams can stay aligned and productive. If for you, Jira has ever felt cluttered or intimidating, then I'm hoping this walkthrough will show you why it's a really powerful tool and how actually it's quite easy to use once you get the hang of it. Sound good? If so, let's jump in. Before we jump straight into Jira, I want to give you some guidance, which is start by thinking about how you want to actually structure your backlog. If you weren't using Jira as a tool necessarily, how would you do it? You could do this by having a discussion in a room with a real physical whiteboard, or you could do it virtually on a tool like Miro. So I have done something very similar, and you can see on my screen I have got a view of the kind of e-commerce website, which is what I'm going to be showing you an example of I want to create. And there's a bit of a logical order of the types of experiences that I want to create. And then I've gone ahead and created a list of user stories and other tasks that need to be delivered to support that. If you want to know more about how I've done this on Miro, you can actually see a link to another video above, which shows how I used AI to help me do this. But once you've got that view, then the next thing you can do is actually go and get that into Jira. So this is my Jira board. You can see I've got a project called e-commerce website, and I'm on the backlog tab here. I've got a board as well, which is where my Scrum projects, my next sprint will be set up, but at the moment that's blank. So under backlog, you can see I have put all of these different stories and tasks in here, and there's quite a long list of them. If you're pretty new to Jira, you might see that some of these have got a green icon and others have got a blue icon. That's just because I've differentiated between a story type work item and a task. The way that I like to use them when I'm structuring my backlog is I will have any user stories, which is an experience, some kind of outcome that we're delivering to an actual end user in the story type, which is this green one. And then if there are other tasks that the team need to deliver, sometimes they're technical activities, they're prerequisites to be able to do those stories. Other times there might be things like documentation, then I'll do this as a other task type. What you'll also notice, hopefully, is this on the right-hand side. These are epics. Now, epics in Jira are slightly different to how we might talk about them in an Agile world. What we mean in Jira as an epic is really just a collection of work items. So a collection of stories and tasks and other things. So each of my stories and tasks have been linked to an epic. And these epics are essentially parts of the experience I'm trying to deliver. So you can see I've got an epic here saying user authentication, then user profile, product catalog, shopping cart, search, order processing, and then admin dashboard. And you can imagine each of those are a bit sequential in the way that I've mapped these out to represent the journey that someone might go on when they are purchasing something on their website. Then within each of these, I've got a number of different user stories or tasks. So if I look at this particular story, for instance, I know it doesn't necessarily look like a story at first glance. It just says register for an account. But if I open that up, and I'll click again just to double down and enter the actual story itself, you can see that although it's called register for account as a title, it does have the user story listed within it in the description. So as a user, I want to register for an account so that I can log in. And there are a bunch of other details in here too. I won't spend time going through this in too much detail today, but I'll share that on another video. But what you can see on the right hand side is a parent, which is the epic. I can actually click on this as well and see what that looks like. Once that loads up, you'll see that it says user authentication as an epic. I should really add a description, and normally if I'm really delivering a product, I would put some kind of description here to explain what I mean by user authentication. But there are a number of child work items in here as well, which are the different items that we want to be delivering. So we've got register for account, log into an account, reset password, and then this technical task of implement OAuth integration. We don't have to deliver all these at once necessarily, but all of these fit inside that category of user authentication. And this is a really nice way just to make sure that your backlog is structured in an organized way that, one, helps everyone in the team be able to find different items, but it helps you also plan for the future. Talking about planning, we now need to work out, well, how would you deliver these? In what order would you deliver them? And there are a couple of ways to do this. The first one I want to talk about, though, is releases. If I go back to the e-commerce website project, I've got on these tabs an area called releases. Now, you might not get this when you first open up Jira. If not, you can press this plus button, which says add to navigation, and it should be one of the items that's listed in here. So I added that myself. When I click on releases, what releases allow you to do is to plan for different big iterations. So I have put in here release 1.0 and 2.0. And I'd think of that as 1.0 being the first minimal viable product, first product I want to launch, but then 2.0 being the next big iteration when I've got everything that I think is really needed to have a robust product. You can see these details inside the board itself as well, or in the backlog, sorry. The way to look at this is once you're on the backlog tab, you can go onto view settings, and there's a couple of extra things you can look at. You can actually look at the epics. I might show you that very briefly. You can see that you can quickly filter by epics here. So if I click on user authentication, I can see just those same items we were looking at before. I'm going to click again to unfilter. Or I can also, or in addition, I can put version panel. I'm going to hide epic panel, but I have actually tagged lots of these to version 1 or version 2. And if I click on version 1, I might open this out slightly as well. You can see there's 21 of these items that are in here for version 1. But I can also otherwise click on version 2 and deselect version 1. And you'll see just the 9 that I think, if push came to shove, I could leave outside the MVP and maybe put in the next iteration. And what this allows you to do is to work out, well, where do I need to be focusing my attention to make sure we've got work items that are ready, by our definition of ready, to take into sprints and get the product team to be delivering. So releases can be really powerful as a way of working that out at quite a high level. The second way you can do this, though, is you also can be using your sprints. I'm going to hide this version panel just to keep things as clean as possible. But you'll see on here that we have a sprint here, Scrum Sprint 1. Now what we can do is this is going to be our first sprint that we're going to go and deliver. And we can decide which of these items from the backlog we want to bring into that first sprint. So for instance, if I wanted to really focus on user authentication as a topic, because it's the first part of the journey, I might select the items that are related to that topic that I think need to be in release 1. So I'm going to drag register for an account, log into account, and implement OAuth integration, for instance. In which case, this might be the very first sprint that we want to go and deliver. We can also then create other sprints. So I'm going to create another sprint below that, which is sprint 2. And I can start planning ahead a number of sprints. So perhaps the second sprint becomes more focused on getting the core of the user profile in place. So I'm going to drag in here, view order history, and maybe something like update profile. And so then we're starting to work through this organized set of backlog items into a plan. And we can use a combination of the sprints and releases to help us here as well. So if I open up my view settings again and put the version panel up and filter on version 1, this might help me quickly work out, well, I know these are all the items that I want to get to by version 1. How can I start dragging the appropriate ones in here? Whereas anything in version 2.0, I could leave out. So that is how I set up my Jira backlogs. I hope this was useful for you. And if it was, please like the video and maybe think about subscribing to the channel. As I mentioned before, I've been a product manager for a number of years now, well over a decade, and I've found that Jira is a really powerful tool, but you don't have to make it complicated. You just need to create a simple structure that's repeatable and allows your team to evolve as the product does. On this channel, I am sharing a lot of my practical advice, my guidance as someone that has worked as a product manager for a number of years across a number of large organizations. So I'm hoping that this will be useful for you, this kind of content. If it is, please let me know in the comments below and let me know what else around Jira and tools like this that you've always found tricky to understand but would really appreciate a video on. Thank you so much for watching, and look, Jira doesn't need to be scary. It should be something that is helpful to you to organise your work and communicate with your team. If it's not, then you're probably using the wrong tool for you. There's other tools out there, but personally, I have always found that Jira is probably the most powerful once you get to use it.